Greetings, Training for Translators listeners. This is Corinne McKay with episode 22 of the Training for Translators podcast, a review of the year 2025 and how it went in my business. But first, a couple of announcements. If you are not on the Training for Translators mailing list, you really should be. I'm, in fact, positive that you would enjoy my newsletter articles because the podcast is based on them. And secondly, this year, one of my goals is to do more with the Training for Translators YouTube channel. And I have started out by posting the old podcast episodes to the YouTube channel. It's just called Training for Translators. And from here on out, the new episodes will automatically post there. So if you like to listen to things on YouTube, you can hop on over there and listen to any old podcast episodes that you would like. So here we go. It's time for my annual year in review post. I have also been doing a bunch of posting on LinkedIn, including a piece on how you work up the confidence to market to direct clients when you know that you are not the cheapest option, which I think is an anxiety that a lot of us share. And I just want to remind you of this year's mantra for all of us in the Training for Translators community. I'll remind you if you forget. Here it is: marketing. Do something, just do more of any kind of marketing without overthinking it. I have been writing these year end review posts for a while, and I will link in the show notes to the blog post that this episode is based on, where if you would like, you can read my year end posts from 2021 through 2024. That writing the post this year felt a bit different. I, to be honest, had a great year due to various factors, including luck, experience, hard work, and being willing to try new things. And at the same time, while I was writing this post and recording this podcast episode, I am also aware and sensitive to the fact that a lot of people in the language professions had a truly terrible year. And my goal here is not to rub it in if you are someone whose business has been crumbling due to AI or the world geopolitical situation. I simply want to give you some examples of what is working for me, a couple of fails, and what I'm looking forward to in 2026. So here we go with goals. First, I wanted to see how I did on the goals that I set in my 2024 year in review post. And here they were. Number one, higher income. Yes, it happened. I earned 145,000 US dollars after paying my subcontractors. That is the most that I've earned in 23 years of freelancing, and it's 20,000 US dollars more than I made in 2024. I set this goal in 2021 and finally reached it. So that was really gratifying. I also achieved a subsidiary goal, which was more consistent earnings. In 2024, I earned less than $10,000 in 4 out of 12 months, which was not ideal. So a third of the year, I was below my target income. And in 2025, that was down to 1 out of 12 months. That was April, the month in which I made 6,596 US dollars, partially due to a delayed payment for a big translation project. But in the other 11 months of the year, I earned more than 10,000 US dollars. And I also had my highest earning month ever, which was 26,000 US dollars in March. Next goal, maintain roughly the same mix of translation and interpreting. This also happened. My income is split exactly even between direct language work and teaching, writing, and consulting. I interpreted for 95 days in court and 95 conference or non-court days. I did a lot of really interesting translation work, and I worked on training for translators the rest of the time. Next goal, mix it up with training for translators. Check, success. I launched a new class, which is Direct Client Research Lab. I've now run 5 sessions of that, and they've all sold out. I started offering monthly free webinars, increased my mailing list by almost 500 people. So I have almost 5,000 subscribers as of today, and had the largest ever session of my marketing challenge group, March Marketing Madness. Next goal, prepare the 20th anniversary edition of How to Succeed as a Freelance Translator. Sort of. So, How to Succeed as a Freelance Translator is kind of my flagship book, and I've written 3 editions of it, and to my shock, the first edition was in 2006, so it's now time for the 20th anniversary edition. But the truth is that after publishing Getting Started as a Freelance Interpreter in June, I needed a break from writing books. Then I was working so much from September, excuse me, to December. I'll talk more about that later, that I did some sporadic work on the book, but it is nowhere near done. Although I will say I'm recording this on January 15th and I did work on it today. So it's going to happen, but it is nowhere near done. Next goal, spend an hour a day on my passion projects, things that are important to me, but that are not client driven. No, complete fail. I took on so much paid work that this did not happen, and I'll talk more about that later. Final goal, meditate, exercise, and cultivate my non screen hobbies, including attending a summer cello camp. I'll give this like 75% success. One of my themes of last year is that I feel like I worked slightly too much, but I did go to cello camp. It was amazing. I finished climbing 14 of Colorado's 14,000-foot peaks. So I turned 54 this year, and that was one of my goals for turning 54. My husband and I did the Grand Canyon rim to rim hike for our 25th anniversary in May. And I went to Fiji, no kidding, the island in the South Pacific with my best friend from high school. So this year was far from all work and no play, but I do think I need to do better on a day to day basis with taking more time for non client driven things that I want to do. Next up, fails. It would not be a year of being a human without a couple fails. And to be honest, I think that when you try something new and it doesn't work out, it's not necessarily a fail. It's something that you learn from. And in my family, we often say, well, you'll only make that mistake once. You'll never do that again. We often repeat that. So here are some fails of the year. Number one, I paid a virtual assistant to prepare and format a compilation of my blog posts, and it has sold a total of 18 copies. The revenue from that is about 15% of what it cost me to create it. And for the record, the virtual assistant did a fantastic job, and the PDF is beautiful. Just, I really overestimated the demand for people to want to buy a PDF of all of my blog posts. Number two, I created a Start Here page for beginning translators on my website, and I made 3 pre recorded webinars, one on getting started as a translator, one on working with agencies, and one on working with direct clients. And it sold one recording of one webinar, 0 sales of the other 2. That is about as big of a fail as you can get. Number 3, radically underpricing the first session of Direct Client Research Lab. This was probably my biggest mistake this year. As I said, I've offered 5 sessions of that class. They've all sold out, and I take 20 to 25 people in that class. I offered the initial session at 110 US dollars, and it sold out in 2 hours. So since then, I have been steadily increasing the price, but multiple participants have told me things like someone told me that they paid more than 500 US dollars for a coaching program that was less valuable than this class. I don't actually want to calculate in my head or in reality the amount of money that I've left on the table with that times 100 participants. But I do think that it just goes to show I want to tell you guys that story because even when you are the one who teaches other people these types of business skills, you still make the same mistakes that everybody else does. That I thought, I don't want to make it too expensive because I'm really offering this as a way to help people and fill a need. And I should have priced it probably more than double what I did price it at. Final fail, I created a hardcover edition of my new book, Getting Started as a Freelance Interpreter, and no one bought it. 0 sales of the hardcover edition. The book is selling well in general, and it only cost me $300 extra when I published the book to add on the hardcover edition, but we're going to put that in the category of mistakes you only make once. I will never again do a hardcover edition of one of my books. Now on to successes. Despite all the things that I just told you, it actually was a really fantastic year overall. Most importantly, I am finally earning the freelance equivalent of a six-figure salary, a goal that I set a long time ago and finally got there. Oddly enough, for the, current climate in the language professions, I did a lot more written translation work than in 2024. Most of that was for one end client, so that could have been just a, fluke. They needed me a lot more than they normally did, but I also landed a new law firm client. So translation for me is going quite well. My new book, Getting Started as a Freelance Interpreter, is out in the world. It's doing well. It's been very positively reviewed. And in terms of royalties, I'm already at break even. It cost me 4,000 US dollars to publish it. And my book royalty earnings this past year were $4,992. I really love interpreting, and I still feel that doing a conference interpreting masters during COVID is one of the best decisions that I've made in my 20 plus year freelance career. I also really love helping people through training for translators. I know that sounds a little cliche, but in addition to people giving positive reviews of individual classes on the survey after they take the class, it's really gratifying. Like I have a student this year who told me that they took my business advice and that this is quote unquote the happiest I've been in my adult life because I'm doing work that feels meaningful and earning what I want to be earning. That was super gratifying. Then for myself, I took a literary translation class through ALTA, the American Literary Translators Association, and I really loved it. That in turn sparked the idea to translate a book that is in the public domain. Stay tuned for that. Next success, I put almost all of my additional earnings into savings. I am not going to brag about how much money I made because I get sick of, and I'm sure you do too, the whole vibe of like, don't you wish you could be me with my incredible luxury lifestyle that you hear from some high earning freelancers? And really, like, I'm just someone like you who happens to be successful as a freelancer. But I do want to give myself credit here, a little pat on the back that of the $20,000 more that I earned this year, I put $16,000 of it into savings, or I guess more correctly, I have $16,000 more in savings than I did at this time last year, which when you account for the taxes on that money means that I put basically all of it into savings because and to me, the reason that I'm proud of myself for doing that is that the two perils, I think, of earning more money are lifestyle inflation, where you just start spending more money on everything, and impulse purchasing, where you think, now I'm going to buy this expensive new thing because I have all this money. And my final success of the year is not lowering my rates in a tough economy. I realize that I am really fortunate in many ways, not least of all that I really do not have to make six figures in order to survive. This year, I wanted to earn more money for a few reasons. I had some big travel goals. I'm pretty concerned that my husband may lose his salary job. He works at a government research lab that has been targeted by the Trump administration for closure. And we needed to do some deferred maintenance on our house, like we got an electric car charger and things like that. But in practical terms, the expenses that we absolutely have to pay for are quite low. Our house is completely paid off. We have no other debt. And I have one child, my daughter, who is in her last semester of university, and she already has a job for after graduation. So for us, our expenses are actually going down instead of up. And I realize again that this isn't the case for everyone, and that this overall financial situation gives me the ability to say no to low paying work. And I'm also happy to report that none of my current clients ask me to lower my rates. Now, next section, why do I think this happened? I feel like this has been a really challenging year for a lot of freelance translators and interpreters. So I wanted to kind of dig into some of what I see as the why behind this, for me, very good year. Number one, experience is certainly a plus. I feel like, particularly for translation, when clients come to someone who has more than 20 years of experience, they pretty much already know that it's not going to be cheap. And either they need somebody with that level of expertise, or they think, you know what, we just want to find someone who seems reliable, throw money at this problem, and get it done with. And I think that the longer you have been a freelancer, the more highs and lows you have survived, like in the world in general and in your own life. So, in this really crazy year, I would tell myself, you know what? I started freelancing in 2002, so I made it through the 2008 financial crisis. My husband has had 2 major health crises. He had to get a pacemaker, and then he was in a very serious mountain bike accident over the course of those years, the COVID pandemic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and I'm still here. So surely I can survive the current stuff, AI fever and geopolitical disruptions. I also think part of it was, people say, like, you don't make a change until the current situation is unpleasant enough that you feel compelled to. And I think in a way, I was like, enough already with this income stuff. I set this goal 5 years ago. I still haven't reached it. When is this going to happen? How about now? As I've talked about before, I did business coaching at the end of 2024. So I think I had some, a lot of like trickle down effects from that. Luck. Anyone who had a great year and doesn't attribute at least some of it to luck is, in my opinion, a big liar. For example, one of my biggest conference interpreting clients was sort of an offhand referral from a colleague that I didn't think was going to turn into anything big, and they are now a 5-figure client. Another interpreting client that I landed this year resulted from a video interview that I initially was not very hopeful about, and they turned into a really good client. So I think there's definitely an element of like right place, right time. Then, two final things. Number one, thinking ahead. When I decided to do my interpreting master's in 2020, it was a combination of reasons. First of all, I had a ton of time on my hands because of COVID. It was something that I had always been interested in, interpreting, and I had a feeling that interpreting in the future would be a lot less affected by technology than translation would be. I am not saying that I had a crystal ball here. I 100% did not. But it does frustrate me when I talk to people these days who say, I'm sitting here watching my longtime successful business crumble down to nothing. And I even said to a colleague the other day, the person asked for advice. Don't worry, I didn't say this unsolicited. Like, unless you have both the financial resources and the desire to stop working, you can't just sit there and watch your business collapse. You have to dial your marketing up as high as you can take it while looking at ways to diversify your business. Final reason I would identify is my willingness to try new things. I tell students in my classes all the time, you literally don't know if something can be successful until you try it. This year, I tried a few new marketing initiatives. Some failed completely. I thought I would try newsletter sponsorships. That was a big fat zero. While other of those ideas have already led to basically as much work as I can handle. And I think the important thing there is having the courage to try. So now, let's wrap it up with my goals for 2026, both tangible and my sort of softer goals. Number one, publishing the 20th anniversary edition of How to Succeed as a Freelance Translator. Honestly, I feel bad that the third edition, which is now 10 years old, is still selling quite well because it's so outdated. This is like my big writing priority for 2026. Number two, get out of the scarcity mindset with interpreting. Crazily enough, I finished the Glendon Master of Conference Interpreting program 5 years ago this spring, and I have dramatically exceeded my goals for how much interpreting I would be doing. I love interpreting so much. And for me, at least, it is much more tiring than translation because it is on someone else's schedule. I cannot work at the times of day that I prefer when I have energy because the interpreting is pre-scheduled and you have to be there. So I'm giving myself permission to have more of an abundance mindset about interpreting and realizing that I am no longer in a position where I have to take every single assignment. Next goal, work shorter days and leave more time for my creative interests. I am not an obsessive workaholic. For example, I almost never work on weekends, and I think for an American, I take a pretty good amount of vacation. But I do sometimes work pretty long days. Last year, it was not unusual that if I had an interpreting assignment that was on East Coast time, that means that I have to log on at 6:30 a.m. my time. Then I would often stay at the office until between 5 and 6 in the evening. So this year, I am trying to set a policy that a workday is no more than 8 hours. For example, the day that I wrote this blog post, I had to be at my office at 7 a.m. And so I did leave at 3. I'm hoping that that will free up more time in the evenings for my yoga classes that I really enjoy and my creative interests. And I'm setting a goal of going to yoga and practicing both of my musical instruments, which is cello and Renaissance lute, on most weekdays. Next goal, taking a multi-week computer-free vacation. So, as I talked about before, I take what I think is a good amount of vacation for an American, around 6 weeks a year. But most of that time, I take my computer with me and I do a little work here and there, partially inspired by a couple of presentations I attended this year with presenters who are really, really diving in on the work-life balance thing. For example, one of them she's a freelance writer who makes in the six figures, working 4 days a week with 3 months of computer free vacation. I am going to try harder at this. So, over the recent Christmas and New Year's holidays, I went on a 10-day family ski trip to Idaho and Utah, and I only took my phone, not my computer. And to be honest, it was incredible. It was so relaxing. I love what I do, and I feel like I need some significant breaks from it. I do think it's helpful if you're gonna take a computer-free vacation to time it with when your clients are likely to be taking time off, not like your high work season. So I'm gonna try this again in August, and I have already booked a 2-week trip to Europe where I plan to take only my phone. Next goal, make at least some progress on a literary translation. And my final goal, which I called my dream goal, is to work a little bit less and earn a little bit more. And I say here, like, I don't mean this to sound greedy. I just think it has to exist as a dream first. And I've also realized that sometimes working more hours is a result of my own sloppy administrative processes. For example, about 2 months ago, I paid my web developer to automate the training for translators registration system, and honestly, I should have done it, like, 5 years ago. It's saving me so much manual administrative work. So, my dream would be that I'd like to do less busy work, focus more on the work I really enjoy, and earn around 150,000 US dollars. There you go. That's my dream. So, again, to wrap up, I know it was a really tough year for a lot of freelancers, and I am sharing these successes partially to give you some hope and partially to share what worked for me and help you try to replicate it for yourself. This has been episode 22 of the Training for Translators podcast. The podcast is hosted by me, Corinne McKay. It's hosted technologically on Libsyn, and I record it in Audacity using a Shure MB7 Plus microphone. If you are not yet subscribed to the Training for Translators newsletter, you can do that at my website, trainingfortranslators.com, and I will talk to you in a future episode.